Good morning, monsters. Welcome to Monsters on the Edge. It's another rainy day here in Wisconsin. I don't know what it's like for everybody else here, but it's been very dry here lately. So it's rained the last couple days. So that's, I suppose, pretty good. But, I like it nice and dry. But at least I don't have to be outside today. So it's a plus. So guys, welcome to Monsters on the Edge. We have a great guest today. I'm looking forward to chatting all about cryptozoology and creatures and all kinds of weird things that they can do. But first off, again, we want to remind you, if you have not checked out season 1 of our show, On the Trail of Undiscovered Beasts, it is streaming now on Paraflix Paranormal Plus. You can get Paranormal Plus for about $3.99 a month and about $30 for a year. If you use the promo code CAPS10, you get 10% off your first 3 months. And we have season 2 coming out this fall, but season 1 is all Bigfoot in Wisconsin. And then, guys, if you want to show your support for cryptids, anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, you can head on over to our website, wisconsincaps.com. There you'll find t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, magnets, and all kinds of cool stuff with our logos and graphics on. You can slap stickers on any of your favorite items and show your support and wear our swag. Click on Shop Our Store. And while you're online, head on over to your favorite social media platform. You can find us on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Wisconsin Caps, or you can search WI Caps on Instagram. If you want to come out and meet myself and my team, we are going to be at MI Paracon in Sault Ste. Marie coming up this August. We are going to be at the Great Lakes Paranormal Conference in Glen Beulah, Wisconsin, September 22nd through the 24th. I'm going to be doing a presentation all on cryptozoology at the Kenosha Public Library, October 6th. And we will be at CryptidCon in Lexington, Kentucky in November. That is the week before Thanksgiving. So that's where we're at, and a couple other events coming up, and I will get them up here on the slideshow as soon as I can get the graphics and stuff for them from the places. So that's it for that. Gotta pull that down. There we go. All right, guys, my guest. Oh, hang on. I got other stuff I have to do first. Hang on. We got to, if you guys are interested in showing your support for the Untold Radio Network, check this out.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys, that's out of the way now. So if you guys have want to show your support, go over to YouTube and click on that, and there you can become a supporter of the, yes, I know, Lee, thank you, I'll get to that too. And you can show your support for the Untold Radio Network and all the great shows and hosts and all the cool stuff that we got going on there. There we go. So this one, I got it. They just add little videos into my chat over there, and I remember to go play them. So there we go. All right. Now, with no further ado, our guest today, Nate, is the creator of such documentaries as Pine State Phantoms and Eyes of the Pines, the Pine Ape Project. He has been featured on Coast to Coast AM, Untold Radio AM with Doug Hajicek, and the Paranormal 60 with Dave Scrader. Nate is the founder of the Association of Cryptozoological Fieldwork and Analysis with over 4,200 members worldwide. And I just read on his Facebook today that he is celebrating the 5th year anniversary of that association. So congratulations to Nate. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Glad to have you here. I got a little cool. There's your graphic. The Association of Cryptozoology,
I know
Logical Fieldwork and Analysis.
I got to update that number part of it on
Yeah,
the right side.
absolutely. I see was it 5,000 now, right?
It's like 4,200 something like that.
Very cool.
Um, yeah, not quite 5,000 yet, but
All
getting
right.
there.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So I kind of read your little bio there that you got, but why don't you tell everybody, what it is that you do and how you got started in all this and, what the association is.
Yeah. So I've been interested in cryptozoology for my entire life, mostly stemming from my interest in like animals and dinosaurs and things like that as a kid. And then just being interested in monster movies like King Kong and Godzilla, things like that. And then when I found out cryptozoology was a thing, it kind of was like a mashup of all of those, of like interesting animals and myths and legends and things like that. And it just kind of all sort of went into one thing that you could sort of like have specific interests in, if that makes sense. There's a lot of overarching stuff in cryptozoology, and I just thought that was one of the more interesting aspects of being involved with that. And so I just decided to make my own association, because I wanted to do things very sort of like how they used to, where it was treated very much as looking for unknown animals. I know more so nowadays people are trying to have paranormal aspects. And I'm not one to like deny anything like that, obviously, but at the association, we try to focus more so on the flesh and blood, footprints, physical evidence, and things like that.
Definitely. Yeah, I was told I had Terry Cullen, who was the famous for like the Minnesota Iceman stuff and that. I had him on my show and I met him in person, a great guy. He's actually going to be on the show coming up in August to talk about the
Cool.
thylacine. So for anybody
man, I love thylacine's my favorite cryptid, so
awesome. Yeah, so he will be on in August doing a whole presentation on here on the thylacine. But he said to me, that cryptozoology is just zoology, pretty much, because all these animals, like we talked earlier before the show, like some of the stuff we're going to get into today, and that this stuff is already out there. It's just new discovered species. Before people put this pseudoscience moniker on it, all it is people going out and looking for new species that haven't been identified or discovered by modern science, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely how we try and look at it. Not that we like gatekeep any paranormal stuff or like anything like that, but we do try to really analyze it and be like, okay, what can we say that this definitely isn't or most likely isn't when looking at evidence and footage and stuff like that, and then basically just seeing like what we have left over and just being like, okay, then we can look more into what we whatever the more like sort of like Occam's razor, whatever the more like realistic kind of I guess explanation would be before even diving into like saying it's Bigfoot or a sea monster or something like that.
Definitely. Whenever my team and stuff gets research, we try and rule out as much as possible.
Exactly.
Because if you can rule out everything that it possibly could be, you're left with, or what you're left with is a lot more valuable, because you have this completely anomalous thing that is now evidence, and you have the proof of that, because, well, it's not this, it's not that, it's not that. Well, what else could it be now?
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even with the thylacine, like I think last year or a couple of years ago, there was some alleged photos taken, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's a thylacine," and it turned out to be I can't think of what it was called, but it was some small marsupial with stripes, and it just was not a thylacine. But no one seemed to listen to that explanation, even though that's pretty obviously what it was. Even when biologists were chiming in and being like, that's what it is. People just kind of ignored it, and we're still sharing it around saying it was a thylacine.
That's
where
really
that comes in handy.
it's really interesting because, you have so many of these people that post like Bigfoot pictures and stuff, and people try and disprove it like hard.
Mhm.
Like, no, it's just a bear, it's just this, it's that. And here you have, and this happens a lot, I think, with the scene in particular, that
Mm.
people try and prove that it is. So you have
Right.
this weird opposite thing there going on because, everyone's saying, well, it's not a Bigfoot, it's not a Bigfoot, when it could be,
Mhm.
and it is when it couldn't be the thylacine. So what do
Right.
you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we do try to be, or at least I try to be open-minded, healthily at least. Um, so like, I'm definitely open-minded to like the possibility of like cryptids and things like that. And I feel like if I weren't open-minded to that possibility of them existing and I don't know, being out there somewhere, I'm not really sure why I would be involved because I personally don't want to be like known as a debunker or a uh, I don't know what another word would be, but I'm really open minded because I want to know if there are actually these undiscovered species out there, and there obviously are, but a lot of them are very, you typically get insects and like frogs and things like that. But I'm hopeful that there's larger undiscovered species out there.
Absolutely. So
Mhm.
you have the Association of Cryptozoology. I'm not going to say this. Cryptozoological Fieldwork and
Yep,
Analysis. And
ACFN.
yeah, so where can people find that and check it out?
Yeah, so that's on Facebook. We've been working on a website. We just haven't gotten it off the ground yet. But yeah, right now we're a group on Facebook. Totally public to join and things like that. But yeah, we've got tons of known cryptozoologists. Carl Schuker, Lauren Coleman. A lot of people are actively like involved with posting, commenting, sharing their field work. And I really tried to make it a sort of like a hub to where people can share their information, get feedback from other researchers and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of like networking sort of thing as well. But yeah.
That's cool. Very cool.
Mm.
Very cool. So before we started today, I was kind of going through some of your articles and stuff that were posted on there, and I thought it was really interesting because you have a lot of different stuff. It's not always the Bigfoot. It's talking about other things and parts of cryptozoology, and I thought that we'd spend some time today and kind of get into some of that stuff. And I
Okay.
thought the best way to start with that would be the little poster child here for
Yeah.
cryptozoology. Do you want to tell everybody about this fish?
Yeah. So this is I almost said this is the thylacine. This is the coelacanth. Um, this was a prehistoric fish that coexisted with dinosaurs, and they were thought to be extinct with them 66 million years ago. And in the 30s, I believe the 30s, there was one was caught. I believe that first specimen was too decayed or uh, destroyed to conclusively have like a type specimen. But I believe a few years later, they found a second one, and it was actually confirmed. And then later, it was found out that the indigenous people were actually eating them and knew about them way before you know Western science did, and they had their like local names for it and everything like that. So that sort of has become the poster child for cryptozoology. It's the logo of the International Cryptozoology Museum, which I worked very closely with for a few years. So yeah, it's sort of like if something like this can survive for this long without anyone knowing, or only the indigenous population knowing with their own how they would treat them and their own names and myths and things like that. What else could be out there? What other something in the ocean or anything like that? It opens up a lot of possibilities, I think, for the potential of cryptids being out there, which I think is why it's so popular, and why it's sort of like the face of cryptozoology, at least for like known animals that we've discovered or rediscovered.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Mm.
That was good. Yeah, and
Mm.
I believe, I don't remember how many, I wanna say, like, in the 20s or something, but there's all subspecies now that
Oh
they've
yeah.
discovered of the coelacanth as well, not just the one species of
Yeah.
it that we thought and knew about, but there's several subspecies that have been rediscovered as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. And that brings us to, I think this article was posted, either today or yesterday on your page,
Mhm.
from June 24th. That was on Saturday.
Yeah,
Australian earless dragon last seen in 1969 rediscovered in a secret location.
it's
Right?
incredible.
Yeah,
Earless dragon just sounds like a type of cryptid.
yeah, definitely. But I
Mhm.
mean, like, we're talking about the coelacanth here, and that was
Yeah.
rediscovered. I'm sorry, rediscovered back
Mhm.
in the 1930s. And you're thinking, wow, that was 1930s. That was a long time ago.
Mhm.
What have you done for me lately, kind of stuff. And look at this, you have more species being discovered or rediscovered every day. That's what cryptozoology is, right?
Mhm. No, absolutely. Very, like I said, we try to take a very naturalistic approach to it. So seeing all of these species that we knew used to be alive, and became extinct, or they weren't seen, or they have like a lower population or something like that, and just sharing that type of information, being like literally on a weekly basis that
Mhm.
new animals are being discovered like this. Once again, like it opens up just an entire possibility for um, more things like that to be discovered.
Mhm. Or we have another one over here.
Mm.
Excuse me. New things about creatures being discovered. And I
Yeah.
thought this was really interesting too. Recently, they talked about a lot of marsupials being discovered having the bioluminescence and stuff. And here's another brand new article. Well, this was from December of 2022,
Mhm.
but somebody shared this recently on your page as well. And
Oh yeah.
that in
And
there's go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, like a bioluminescent millipede sounds like a cryptid. Like it just reminds me of like Mongolian deathworm or something like that. Like if you told someone you saw a glowing centipede or millipede or something, like no one would believe you.
Mhm.
So, and we know it's a real species now. So,
I find it interesting that, a lot of the other bioluminescent creatures that were discovered or not discovered, but, found out about and that
mhm.
are all Australian as well.
Oh
Do
yeah,
you do you have any thoughts or, why is
Australia just seems to
Australia weird?
be. Yeah, no, Australia just seems to be, just in terms of animals we know of, just insane, like zoologically, biologically, because just looking at like marsupials and how like convergent evolution sort of works with them, where like the thylacine, koala, and kangaroo are just all marsupials in the same family. Like it's kind of crazy. It's like, how are these things that look so different all so closely related?
Mhm.
Um, and there's even theories that like the yowie is a marsupial, because I believe there's been a couple eyewitness descriptions of them having like a pouch with a baby in it. And that, I feel like that might be even more realistic than it being an ape or a primate or something like that. Just because of how the wildlife is in Australia. It's so unique. Um, it's I would totally believe that there's something unknown in Australia that we haven't found yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool cryptids and stuff in Australia.
Definitely.
You just don't hear about some of it, like the drop bear and the
Mhm.
bunyip, and I mean, what can you tell us about them?
Well, the drop bear is, to my knowledge, more so like an urban legend that people in Australia tell tourists, they're, who don't know anything about the wildlife. They're like, "Oh, if you watch out for the drop bear, always be like looking up, or it's a koala, but it has sharp teeth and claws, and the reason it's called the drop bear is because it will drop down from the trees onto tourists and attack them and kill them, presumably." Um, so drop bears are more so like I guess like a snipe type thing, where it's like sort of to mess with tourists. Um, but I've never talked to anyone from Australia about drop bears. That's just what I know about that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Australia's got a bunch of interesting cryptids, like the bunyips one, which is like an aquatic. It's got a bunch of different descriptions where it's like sometimes it's a big mammal type thing, sometimes it's like a weird tentacled like reptile thing. There's not really a super consistent description for it, aside from it being just this large aquatic animal that's potentially aggressive. Some have said it's like a humanoid type thing. And I think that's really interesting. I'm not sure what to make of it. That might be an indicator that it's maybe more so like a folkloric type thing where its design changes throughout stories and things like that. But yeah, the bunyip's definitely an interesting one and a super popular one for people interested in cryptids, especially starting out. It's one of like, at least for me, it was one of the first ones I heard of was the bunyip. And yeah, it's definitely interesting to look into.
Are you familiar with the hodag from
I
Rhinelander?
am, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really good friends with the guys from Rhinelander and
Cool.
Hodag Store and all those guys. And I find it really interesting that there are some depictions of the Australian bunyip that look very identical to some of the renderings of the hodag creature.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can think of one in particular that's very like it looks exactly like a hodag.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting because I'm not sure, which design would have come first or anything. So I don't know if they influenced them or in any way. To my knowledge, people didn't actually have sightings of hodags or confirmed sightings. They were just mostly like lumberjack tales and things like that. But I'm sure the people in Rhinelander would know far more than I would. So I don't want to say anything definite, but yeah, definitely interesting.
Well, one of the theories is the hodag as we know it from Rhinelander was popularized by Eugene Shepard, the lumber baron who kind of brought it to the forefront. But he was reading a newspaper article that predated him, where he went out and looked for it.
Oh, interesting.
And I like I said, I'm really up on hodag stuff because
yeah.
I know all these guys. But one of the theories is that these lumberjacks were seeing woolly mammoths.
Interesting. I've not heard that one. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would need to look into that more to say anything about it, but I could totally see that. Especially the very early descriptions of the hodag describe like an elephant mouth, which is a very weird, specific, unique description of a creature. So yeah, I would have to look into that more, but yeah.
Yeah. As you said, the first article, if you read the quotation about it, actually describes it of having like the trunk or the face of an elephant, like you said.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And that's what's really kind of interesting, because if that is what they were seeing, if they're describing what they're seeing this big furry beast with the face of an elephant, but there obviously isn't elephants in North America
Right, yeah.
anymore, at least. So yeah, I always find that really interesting when people are like, oh, it's just an urban legend, but it might not be, and,
oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really cool when you look at these other creatures, because you see these, and the other thing is, look at bears. You have bears on every continent except Africa, right?
Yeah.
So you have these species that are spread out across the planet, and they all are very similar, very subspecies and stuff. So why can't these cryptids, as well? We're seeing the exact same style type of creatures, the Bigfoot, the Dogmen, Mothman even type creatures, the pterosaurs, and and then we got the bunyip and the hodag, I forgot what it was called already.
Right, yeah.
These different creatures are being seen around the world in different places. So is it all just something people are making up, or is there something that they're actually seeing that is there?
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. There's sorry, I'm blanking a little bit.
Did you get distracted by this too? What do you call a yowie with a broken arm?
I saw that.
A yowie with an owie.
I did. I was a little distracted.
As soon as that popped up, you lost your train of thought. I'm like, all right, we're gonna go with this.
Yeah. Sorry, kind of lost track. What are your thoughts? Sorry.
So in other words, you forgot the question. You want me to reiterate? That's great. No, I forgot it too. So we'll move on. we got another question for you, and then we'll get back to this. Yeah. Lee says, "Oops, sorry."
Oh,
you
totally
just
fine.
failed the show, Lee. Sorry.
Totally worth it, I think.
Absolutely. Speaking of questions, Jack has a question here for you. Says, great stuff. Are you still working on a crawler book? And if so, are you finding that they are alarmingly similar with Wendigos?
So yes, we're currently in the stages of publishing it. We're just kind of waiting now for publishing stuff. And there actually is a little bit. My friend Ryan actually wrote a section of it about the sort of like the distinction between like crawler, Wendigo, and skinwalker, because a lot of people tend to lump them all together, and they're very much all their own separate things, especially with the Wendigo and skinwalker being more supernatural entities rather than like a biological sort of cryptozoological type thing, whereas the crawler would be more so akin to like the Dover demon or something like that, where it doesn't really have any supernatural aspects outside of looking sort of like an alien. But we haven't gotten any really like lights or UFOs or any descriptions with any of the crawler stuff. So there is definitely this sort of separation of Wendigo and crawlers. And they seem to be two completely separate entities. And in the book, we do talk about that in more detail.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you think that the rake or the crawlers and that stuff, do you think that those are actual real creatures? Like a lot of people have theorized that they're like living in caves or underground people and stuff like that. Do you see that, or what do you think?
I can see that. I tend to look at it more as like a species of unknown primate or something like that, just based on the descriptions and how they act. I don't really see them being like aliens or like weird mutated humans or anything like that. And a lot of their descriptions, match up with, and how they act match up with baboons and how certain primates act when they're threatened, where a lot of them will sort of rush you on like a bluff charge sort of thing, and just like make a lot of noise and look scary. But I personally have yet to find one where someone's actually attacked or hurt or anything by one. So it seems like they're curious, and they sort of will, kind of like Bigfoot in a way, where there are certain ones or certain sightings where they will do like bluff charges and things like that. But then they're also like very curious, where they'll inspect people and things like that.
Very cool. Guys, we are coming up on the halfway point of the show. If you have any questions for Nate about anything cryptozoological, any new species of animal or hominid or any kind of creature, put them in the comments, and we will get to them right after this very short promo of Untold Radio.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Awesome. More money grabs. Love it.
I love.
I
love the money.
We're not mistaken.
Oh, I totally get it. Trust me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you guys do have a question, if you put it in all caps in the comments, it'll draw our attention to it easier and make it easier for us to see. Because sometimes we do have like a run of comments over there, and it's hard to keep track of it. So, But yeah, getting back into this, I wanted to talk about, like we said, there's Bigfoot, there's all these creatures, that are, the legendary mythology creatures and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
interesting.
Not sure that was. That went by.
And with that sound, no,
Yep. The Men in Black.
yeah, they're on to us. You have a lot of animals and species that, again, are known by science, but are just unique species. One that comes to the top of my head is, the black panthers or the black cats.
Mm-hmm.
And these things show up where they're not supposed to be. And going back to some of the stuff that was posted recently on your page, you have this rare orange lobster was caught up in Maine. Here's another weird, anomalous thing. So you said that this was right up by you.
This was Casco Bay, which is literally like, well, I could walk there right now. Yeah, and even then we get like blue lobsters. I think like almost every like few years we'll catch like a bright blue lobster. And then everyone will talk about that for like the whole summer. But I'm not sure how often like orange lobsters like that are caught. This is the first for me hearing about it, but it's interesting where it is just like a regular it's not a different species, at least not to my knowledge, I don't think. But that also sort of like opens up a door where like maybe one cryptid is just a variation in color or something of like the same species or something. So like I know some people will say like some Bigfoot types, just because they're different colors, they're like different types of Bigfoot, but we see variation in coloring between individuals and tons of animals. Like black bears will turn brown. There's like white moose even, which could sort of lead into like talking about the spectre moose a little bit, which is a local sort of colonial era thing where people were coming from all around the world to look for these white moose to hunt, and no one ever bagged one. A little tangent for a local legend, but yeah.
Now there's definitely a difference as well, going off that topic too, between white animals like variants and actual albino animals.
Yes. There is a difference. I don't know enough specifically about each individual like genetic variation and things like that. But I know, yeah, I don't think anyone, in terms of the spectre moose at least, no one ever reported it having like red or pink eyes or anything. So most people don't think that they were just like albino moose or anything like that. But I know white Bigfoot are also like very popular, but no one ever describes them as having like pink eyes or white eyes or anything that would seem to indicate that they were albino or anything like that. So I think that's interesting too.
Yeah, again, I'm up on a little bit of that stuff, but I don't know the genetics behind.
I'm not a scientist, so
the hair difference. I do know that the difference between a white animal and an albino animal is, like you said, the pink eyes and some stuff like that. That if it's a normal eye color, it's not a true albino. It's just the skin or the.
I forget what there's a term for it. I forget what it is, but
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
that's what we're looking at too with the black cats and stuff, is that you have the jaguars and the black jaguars are known species, but in North America and stuff, you're getting these, and even over in Europe, in London and the UK and stuff, they're getting more and more sighting reports of these black cats that are not the jaguars, or even if they are, they're where they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, so a lot of like out of place. Not so much maybe a new species, but definitely just like an out of place creature. And I believe someone had shared an article in the group about something recently in terms of like black cats in the UK. But I can't recall what it was.
Yeah, I pulled this up off your site. The Canadian super pigs pose environmental threat as they cross borders into the States.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another example of, creatures. This is a known creature, a known animal, but it is classified as a cryptid pretty
Mm-hmm.
much because it's not where it belongs.
Oh,
These
yeah.
creatures are going beyond their normal realm for either food or environmental factors and stuff, and they're crossing over into places that they don't belong, making them a cryptid. Because if you saw this thing running around and it's not supposed to be there, well, what do you think? What are you going to think it is?
Oh yeah. Well, and even that, this picture even is a really good example of, it's a clear daylight photo, but imagine getting like a fleeting glimpse of this thing, and it's darker, maybe not ideal conditions, maybe there's brush in front of it, and most people who aren't familiar with the wildlife, I could totally see how something like this could be misidentified for something that is just completely different. Like someone could see that as like a monster, or even like a bear or something. I could see someone misidentifying these hogs as. Do you remember the Hogzillas from like a couple decades ago?
I remember a whole Monster Quest episode on that.
Oh yeah, yep,
yeah, definitely. And then you bring up another great point here. Like, let's say I wish I could cover this up, but like if you could cover up just the well, no, not like that actually. Here,
yeah,
no, you can't. All right, if you could just cover the head of this.
Yeah.
You saw this thing like running around somewhere, you could easily mistake this thing for, say it's a Bigfoot.
I'm trying to cover up the head with like my thumb, and I can't even think. If I'd seen that, I don't even know what I would have thought it was.
Yeah. It's just weird, like if you're out in the woods, there's not supposed to be any pigs there for one, right? So now you have this animal that is there that you can see, but you can't tell what it is. So even though it is this normal, mundane, everyday pig, you have no idea what it is. So your brain starts trying to figure it out, and it could easily be mistaken for some sort of other cryptid. Depending where you are in the world, you could think this is a dog man or a chupacabra or Mothman or Bigfoot, whatever it is, and your brain is going to go, I don't know what that is. It must be this thing,
And not to mention that the human brain is notoriously, like, over and over again, there's been these tests and analysis. Human brain is notoriously very bad at recalling things like that, like certain, because I believe they've done a few things. Like they did one with Roswell, where they sort of remade the crash and took like the debris and stuff, and they just had like groups of people walk by and then interviewed them about like, oh, what do you remember seeing, like days later or something like that. And I'm pretty sure they were all in some way, there were some things that they just completely misremembered that weren't even there. And then I believe Monster Quest also did a thing where they judged the size. I believe it was Mothman. They had a bunch of cutouts, and then they drove down like a road at night and were like, oh, and just sort of estimate how big you think these cutouts are. And I think all of them overestimated it by a foot or more. So one of my like personal theories is that a lot of eyewitnesses are actually overestimating how big some of these cryptids are, because most of the time there's no size reference or anything like that. They're just sort of going off by how tall they look like they are. And when I was out working with the Cryptozoology Museum, there's a big Bigfoot cutout, and it's like 8 feet tall, something like that. And people were like, almost every time we're like, oh, that's like 10 feet tall, 8 feet tall, or 9 feet tall. And it's like, it's a couple feet shorter than that, but yeah. So just humans are notoriously not great at recalling information, and Yeah, I definitely think a lot of people are saying a lot of the cryptids are a little bit bigger than they actually might be in real life. And that also sort of goes back to like the naturalistic looking at them as like real animals. Um, and it kind of makes it a little more realistic when we kind of shrink them down a little bit, because it's like, oh, they're not all these like 10-foot tall monsters that are just out in the woods that we somehow haven't discovered yet.
Mhm.
um, if that makes sense. That got a little rambly, but yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense because,
Mm,
we're looking for, everyone always says, well, Bigfoot's 8 to 10, 8 to 12 feet tall, right?
mm,
Well, even if they are, they start out at 2, 3 feet
mm,
tall as an infant, and
exactly.
they have to grow to that size.
Yes.
When people are looking for these things, and they're saying, "Oh, it's up in a tree." Well, you can't get a 12-foot critter to sit up in a tree. That's 1,000 pounds of
Mhm.
Bigfoot. Well, yeah, but it wasn't always that big.
Right, yeah. It's
Yeah.
that goes for a lot of cryptids too. A lot of, um I remember one, I don't remember what the video was, but, someone had commented like, "Oh," it was a Bigfoot video, and someone was like, "Oh, this only looks to be about, like, 5 feet tall, so it can't be real," and I was like, "Well, they don't all come out being, 10 feet tall or whatever. They have to grow to get that big."
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and also, it's been theorized and stuff with Bigfoot and some of the other stuff is the sexual dimorphism is you
Mm,
have
mhm.
males can be 10, 12 feet tall,
Yep.
but the females are only gonna get 5 to 6 feet tall,
Mhm. And you
so
see
you
that in a lot of primates too, mostly like
Mhm.
gorillas and stuff like that. There is a very, very drastic sexual dimorphism, especially in like orangutans, where they have like these big throat pouches and like these big face sort of like flaps or whatever you want to call them. And the females are very much don't have them as drastically as the males do. So that could also go back to what we're talking about with like individual variation in between, the same species. And maybe people thinking that it's maybe a different type of Bigfoot might just be a female version, or a subspecies or something like that.
Mhm. And with your primates, especially like gorillas and stuff too,
Mm,
you have the color variations of getting older. A lot of animals
mm,
as they age, look at humans, you get the white or the gray hair, the silver hair and stuff. And you hear this in the Bigfoots and stuff, these large males or these, large Bigfoots,
mm,
presumably males, where they're white or silver in color.
mhm. Oh yeah, like silverback. Big. I've heard a couple stories about silverback Sasquatches. And
Yeah.
I think the normal assumption, or the safe assumption, would be that it would be like an older male or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah. If you don't, like believe that these creatures get as big as they do, because we're talking about these things being 8 to 10 feet tall. But if you ever get the chance to get up and close and personal, like, a glass away from these
Mm.
gorillas at zoos,
Oh
or
yeah.
if you can go to a museum and see one of these taxidermy specimens of these creatures, they're big.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. They're like intimidating. Like,
Mhm. You don't
um,
you don't realize how far or how big they are when you see them. You go to zoo and you get,
mm,
like, these nice big exhibits, and they're running around and climbing on stuff, and you don't
yeah.
realize when you're this close, like, right next to one, how big that actually is.
Oh
The
yeah. Or
head.
even just like how wide they are. Like it's kind of crazy.
Mhm.
And this is also sort of where my open-mindedness starts to kick in, or take over, because there are consistent reports. I think more so in like Alaska, where the Bigfoot are consistently reported being 9+ feet tall. And I think that's very interesting, because that could absolutely be a just geographical morph, or whatever you want to call it, of like a North American Sasquatch species or something like that. You see it in bears a lot, where similar species, if maybe they're, I believe black bears, more down south, they're more thinner, just because of the different temperatures and stuff like that. But in like Alaska, you it's just such a drastically different environment, where you're having like snow, cold weather, mountains, things like that, you would need to adapt to that environment. So you would see, perhaps bigger individuals or more well equipped to be in that type of environment.
It's somebody's law. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Bergman's law.
Bergman's
Thank
rule,
you.
yeah. Yep.
Awesome. I was just trying to think of what it was called. And there it is, right in the chats. Bergman's law. And this is what I've wondered about that, though, because I've heard people talk about this before. As you get closer to the equator, things get smaller. As you get farther away from the equator, things get bigger because they got to stay warm. Look at your polar bears, your moose, your other things like that. But when we're getting these Bigfoot and Sasquatch reports and stuff, at least here specifically in North America, I'm talking, you hear a lot more about smaller Bigfoots by like me here in Wisconsin. I don't know about you up in Maine and that, but we're kind of similar stretch of the US and that there.
Yeah.
But you're getting these monstrous Bigfoot reports the further south you go. I know somebody that has a 2-foot long footprint.
Wow, yeah.
From down Tennessee, Kentucky area.
Yeah.
And you're getting these reports of like 12-foot Bigfoots down in Oklahoma and Texas and stuff. So if we're applying this Bergman's rule, thank you, to these creatures, I mean, is that making sense? Because it seems like it's a complete opposite.
Yeah. And that's where we have to look deeply into like individual encounters, how, and this isn't to like, say any encounter is more or less credible than the other, but it's when we bring up questions like this, especially within like the association that I have and things like that, at least I try and look at the individual encounters, how reliable how reliable can we figure out some of these people are, if that makes sense. What if there's anything weird about the sighting where would give us like pause to be like, okay, that might be a hoax or something like that, or even like a misidentification or something. So yeah, this is where like the open-mindedness / like skepticism, healthy skepticism, helps out a lot, because it allows us to dive deeper into individual cases and things like that. Sorry if that sounded like I was dodging the question. Yeah.
I forgot what I was gonna say. On the note of the variants of these creatures. Have you noticed like I have two questions here, and I'm mixing them, and that's not.
No.
Have you seen the reports being more aggressive coming out of like Oklahoma and Texas and stuff for the Bigfoot creatures and that? And I've heard people say that one of the things is down there it's hotter, there's less food, and there's more of a fight for survival, which is
definitely
making these creatures more aggressive. Have you found similar reports like that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think of all the time whenever there's anytime someone has like a cryptid sighting that they bring to us, I try and think of like, okay, how would this creature, let's say Bigfoot, for example, interact with all of the rest of the animals in its environment? So if you think about that, so we'll just take like skunk ape or something like that, for example, or like falc monster. This thing would be interacting with like alligators and all these sort of like large predator animals like bears and I think even jaguars down south. I'm not too
Florida Panthers, yep.
Florida Panthers. So they would have all this type of competition, and that sort of goes back to looking at it in a naturalistic way, where it's like certain animals have certain niches throughout every single environment. So it also helps trying to figure out where like a Bigfoot or something would try and fit in to like that natural order if it is, we're looking at it as a natural animal. So yeah, it's interesting to try and figure out like, oh, how would like a skunk ape come across, what would it do if it came across like an alligator or a Florida panther or something. Yeah.
Very good. How does it fit in its ecological niche?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
What does it interact with and stuff? How does it have to compete for food in those areas? Yeah. Exactly. There you go.
And sometimes it's just like we'll go back to Australia a little bit with the Beringer, if you're familiar with that one at all.
No, actually no.
Yeah, so it's allegedly there's been eyewitness sightings of a large theropod dinosaur, like a T-Rex, in Australia, and obviously if that were the case, we would be finding shedded teeth, because we know for a fact like dinosaurs like T-Rex were constantly regrowing their teeth like sharks or alligators, and so we would be finding things like that. So in my opinion, something like a surviving T-Rex is probably a little less likely, just because it would have such a huge impact on the wildlife, and we would definitely be seeing evidence of a giant dinosaur that's eating human-sized animals and things like that. So yeah, looking at like the ecological niche and to be blunt, knowing about biology and how all different animals interact with each other in an environment is very helpful in figuring out if maybe a sighting is more or less credible, or if we're looking into maybe how realistic a cryptid is or something like that in an environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of these things, like, the raptors and some of the smaller stuff could survive off of, the rabbits or the rapid frog and toad of Australia as well. So there's plenty of food source there. And we do have the reports of the small velociraptor, T-Rex kind of dinosaurs down in Texas as well.
Oh, like interesting.
The video of one like running down the street or something. It was this lizard creature. I don't know what it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, look into that. That's kind of cool too. But
yeah, my love for dinosaurs always, like, I'll always look for a dinosaur sighting. So
absolutely. I remember the other thing I was gonna say, if people are seeing these 12-foot tall Bigfoot out in the woods and stuff, whether it's a Bigfoot or anything, if they're seeing this giant 12-foot, even 8-foot creature out in the woods, there's a very small amount of animals that could be, even natural. I mean, besides like moose, elk, and I mean, we talked about how you're hard to tell an animal based on, if you don't see its head, going back to the pig, but big is big. I mean, if you see something that's bigger than you, it narrows it down by quite a bit what you're looking at.
You definitely, yeah. Especially if it's like a bear or a moose or something that's just so much larger than you. We talked about earlier with like people overestimating how big things are. There are just some animals that are just gigantic, like a moose. That kind of helps you narrow it down as to what the ID is of the animal. So yeah.
I'm going to try and get through this question here. Interesting subject. What about the generations after generation of bullies or bully families? Maybe similar with great northern primate. So
so is that referencing like pit bulls or dog breeds?
Maybe.
Or
I was thinking more like, like you have good people, you have, jerk people and stuff. And we're talking about the same in the family structure of Bigfoot, possibly.
Interesting. I might need to have a little more detail on that question.
Yeah, if you can clear that up, feel free. It was a recent comment, so hopefully we can get some more clarification on that one. We can come back to that. And Lee would like to know, have you ever seen a cryptid animal yourself?
I personally have not, but I do have a sort of Bigfoot story that I've shared a couple times. It wasn't a visual sighting, but we heard, we were my father and I were following just something along the woods in just the middle of the night. We were walking down a dirt road by our cabin that we have literally in just the middle of nowhere. And we were just following this thing, just pushing its way through the brush, and pitch black. All we had was like our little flashlights and stuff. And it was just moving through, like it wasn't like, pushing it out or anything. So we thought it was a moose because it was just sort of forcing its way through the brush. And we were like, okay, so if we go to the porch, it sounds like it's going to come out. So if we beat it there, we'll see it when it comes out. And we'll have our lights on it, and we can see if it's a moose or a bear or whatever. So we get to the porch. Unfortunately, the brush was just way too thick. It was in the middle of summer, so everything was overgrown and things like that. But behind the brush, so it would be like porch and then like brush, and then behind it is a creek. And we heard this thing come out of the brush and step through the water, but it wasn't like a four-legged like moose or deer or anything like that. It was very clearly like something on two legs, like a person. I always say like a person walking at the beach in shallow water, where it's like step, 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 very clearly, and then walked just into the woods. But we never saw it because, of course, the brush was in the way. So that's my only sort of like unknown cryptid animal encounter that I've had. And we like to say that it was a Bigfoot, but we can't say for certain.
Cool. Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like this comment. I want to bring it up here.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs to get a phone thermal unit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How reliable are those apps is the thing. I'm not sure if I don't know anything about
pretty good
thermal tech or anything.
Pretty good.
So.
I have an AGM. It's not going to show AGM Glory Pro.
Oh, cool.
Phone. And the phone actually has built-in thermal imaging. It also has IR night vision video and pictures. So you can take pictures in pitch black. You can video in pitch black. Caterpillar also makes phones. I have a few of those that we use for field work, and those have built-in video and picture thermal imagers built in. They're older units that you get have lower quality, like pixels and stuff.
Yeah, I can
but
imagine.
the AGM ones here, the AGM Glory Pro, it's about $700 to $800 for the whole phone. It's unlocked, works on any unit, but definitely highly recommend those because you're out in the woods, you're out driving down the road. You have a thermal imager, you have an audio recorder, you have a night vision video and picture. You have everything you need to go out Bigfooting.
Oh, man, I guess I have to invest in one of those. See, that's how much I knew about it. I thought it was an app. So
you can also get, if you don't want to get a whole phone, they also sell Seek, SEEK, or FLIR.
FLIR, yeah, I'm familiar
ones
with
that you can just plug into your USB ports on your phone.
Oh, cool.
And then you download the apps for those. And those are anywhere between like $100 to $300, depending which model you get.
That's not terrible, honestly. I've seen them for like way, way more. Just thermal stuff in general.
And it does video. Yeah. That's my
main. That would be the big selling point for me. So
yeah, it's not an
app.
Yeah, not an app. But yeah, very cool. I highly recommend that. And to back up Cliff Barrickman's statement, get a dash cam.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Because most of your Bigfoot sightings and encounters are typically road crossings.
And very fleeting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Nate, I could honestly probably talk to you all day. So
oh, absolutely, yeah. I'd be happy to come back for another episode.
I would love that, man. Yeah. You're an amazing wealth of knowledge and very, very well versed in all this stuff and very scientific based, which I like because it's the repeatability, the science of it.
Exactly.
Like you said, very open-minded. So I appreciate all your hard work, and I love following your stuff. Again, a reminder to everyone, Nate, where can people find you? Where can they get a hold of you, send you reports or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm 24/7. I'm on the ACFA group, always working on stuff, always trying to respond to people, talk to people, help people out any way I can. Everyone else is super amazing in the group. Everyone's always so super helpful. I'm mostly on Facebook. My sort of smaller production company for like my films is Bizarre Base and ruralchaos.tv. And you can find all my stuff there, my DVDs and all my work and things like that. But yeah, if you ever want to talk to me, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but the ACFA, you'll definitely get through to me if you contact me through there. So
very cool, man.
Thank you so much.
Lee, last comment here. Lee likes you very much because you laughed at her dad joke.
Of course, love me a good dad joke.
We've made a new fan, so there you go.
Love me a good dad joke.
Awesome. All right, Nate, thank you so much for your time, and I definitely will reach out in a little while here to get another time with you, because this is awesome.
Thank you so much.
I heard you on another show talk about dinosaurs and cryptids, or not cryptids, but those things.
Yeah, those types of things. Yep.
Yeah, we got to dig into all that stuff as well. So
I can talk forever about any of this stuff. So
yeah, definitely. All right, man. Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed it. And, tell me in the comments, let me know, shoot me a message on Monsters on the Edge on Facebook and tell me how much you like Nate, and we'll get him back. And there you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nate. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's about all the time we got for this week's episode. I am supposed to have next week will be a recorded episode. It will be the 4th of July weekend one, and I am supposed to have Stacy Brown Jr. on. So hopefully, as long as Stacy can make it, we will get that episode recorded, and next week, Monday, we will have Stacy Brown on the show. So guys, until then, I hope you enjoyed our show. Go out and check out the Association of Cryptozoological Fieldwork and Analysis. And until next time, guys, I'll see you on the edge.